Church vandalism. U.S. bishops condemn acts of vandalism and destruction at Catholic sites. Scaling back. President Donald Trump makes an announcement about the Republican convention this summer. Back and forth. Tensions continue to grow between the United States and China. And the secrets of success. A priest from Italy explains how he reached the faithful during the coronavirus lockdown. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, July 24th, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight, the push to protect Catholic churches and religious statues. Earlier today, a senior White House official told us the violence against Catholic monuments is absolutely appalling and that the president joins the Catholic community in solidarity during this difficult time. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, statues of the Virgin Mary and Jesus targeted by vandals. The White House promises to go after lawbreakers, but tonight, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops worries we haven't seen the end of it.
Recent weeks have seen acts of vandalism and destruction at Catholic churches across the United States, including arsons, decapitations of statues, and graffiti. President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence, both with strong words.
We will never allow an angry mob to tear down our statues, erase our history, indoctrinate our children, or trample on our freedoms.
Well, burning churches is not protest. Tearing down statues is not free speech.
Just last month, the White House issued an executive order to prosecute any person or any entity that damages, defaces, or destroys religious property, including by attacking, removing, or defacing depictions of Jesus or other religious figures or religious artwork. For the faithful, a time of great unease. Canceled masses and social distancing have been stressful enough, the attacks causing more pain. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops not sure what's behind the destruction. For example, the statue of Mary spray-painted with the word idol. And in another case,
the attack on the church in Florida, while horrifically violent and dangerous and sad, was perpetrated by a man who I believe has been diagnosed with schizophrenia.
With no clear motive, Balsarac says increase vigilance and be on alert. But at the same time,
responding in kind to acts of violence or aggression is not the path forward.
He also says the statues are vehicles for adoration and catechesis and help us grow in holiness, the messages of love and compassion. As for their targeted destruction by some,
it would be quite sad but not entirely surprising if we saw some more of these in the coming days.
And finally tonight, a senior White House official goes on to say, quote, rest assured, President Trump will always demand law and order in American communities and ensure the criminals causing these sacrilegious acts will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Tracy?
All right, thank you so much, Owen. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting for us tonight. And coming up later in the show, we have analysis from National Catholic Register contributor and legal analyst Andrea Paciani. President Donald Trump has announced that he is canceling the portion of the Republican National Convention in Jacksonville, Florida.
The timing for this event is not right. It's just not right with what's happened recently, the flare-up in Florida. To have a big convention is not the right time. It's really something that, for me, I have to protect the American people. That's what I've always done.
The president will still give a convention speech, however, not live in person. As for the Republican delegates, they will still meet in Charlotte, North Carolina. The group Democrats for Life is urging the Democratic National Committee to make its platform more friendly to pro-lifers. In a letter released today, the group said in part, quote, we urge you to reject a litmus test on pro-life people of faith seeking office in the Democratic Party. The request had more than 100 signatures, including Christian pastors and religion professors. The nation's top emergency official testified today on Capitol Hill for the second time this week. Administrator Peter Gaynor outlined FEMA's coronavirus pandemic response and how FEMA is preparing for natural disasters yet to come. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
Well, Tracy, as we know, since the outbreak of this COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. has faced a shortage of not only vital testing materials, but also personal protective equipment for frontline workers, PPEs. But the FEMA administrator testified today that with each passing month, the production of PPEs has also increased, and the U.S. is in much better shape.
We recently talked one-to-one to all the state emergency management directors about how much PPE they have on hand. And for the most part, every state has 60, 90, 120 days stockpile.
Federal Emergency Management Agency Administrator Peter Gaynor testified the U.S. is ramping up production of personal protective equipment.
There's more made in the U.S. now than there was a couple months ago. And N95 masks, we're making those today. Companies like 3M, Moldex, Honeywell, O&M, Halyard, all have either increased their production or started new production.
And Administrator Gaynor was questioned on whether FEMA is ready to handle both the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic response plus other emergencies like hurricanes and wildfires that are yet to strike.
Operating in overlapping disaster environments will create new challenges. Evacuating people within the COVID-19 environment will require the widespread availability of non-congregate sheltering so that social distancing can be observed wherever possible.
Although social distancing will be difficult in emergency shelters, FEMA's emergency guidance warns if you must evacuate to a shelter to be prepared. If possible, bring with you items to help protect you and others from COVID-19, such as hand sanitizer, cleaning materials, and 2 cloth face coverings per person.
Unprecedented time for the country and for FEMA. It's going to be about mass care. How do you move those people? How do you shelter those people? How do you keep them safe?
And lawmakers called on the administrator to focus on communities that are already reeling from the pandemic.
FEMA should be doing a lot more direct contact with these communities beyond just statements that you don't want them to get hurt more than anyone else.
FEMA's administrator also told lawmakers that its emergency food and shelter program has put away some $320 million to aid to help feed the homeless. And that money was available actually early last month. And it's important to note that a member of Catholic Charities sits on that board that administers that program. Tracy.
Correspondent Eric Rosales reporting from Capitol Hill tonight. Thanks so much, Eric. Well, first it was CNN, and now the Washington Post has settled a lawsuit by Covington Catholic high school student Nicholas Sandman. Video showed him after the March for Life last year at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Sandman filed a defamation lawsuit against both CNN and the Washington Post for falsely reporting that he was aggressive. He says that he lived under constant threat. CNN settled earlier this year, for the settlement was for an undisclosed amount. Relations between the United States and China are going from bad to worse. In a blunt assessment of China's recent actions, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says China is threatening a new tyranny.
China ripped off our prized intellectual property and trade secrets, causing millions of jobs all across America. It sucked supply chains away from America and then added a widget made of slave labor. It made the world's key waterways less safe for international commerce. President Nixon once said he feared he had created a Frankenstein by opening the world to the CCP.
Speaking from the Nixon Library in California, Secretary Pompeo said President Trump has made it clear that the administration needs a strategy that protects the American economy. Yesterday, China ordered the U.S. consulate in the western city of Chengdu to be closed, making it harder for the U.S. to monitor religious rights abuses in Tibet and Xinjiang. Huge protests in Israel overnight, both for and against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Thousands rallied in rival protests outside of Netanyahu's home in Jerusalem. They were separated by metal barricades and a heavy police presence. 55 people were arrested. The anti-Netanyahu protesters accuse the prime minister of corruption and are condemning government plans to impose coronavirus restrictions without parliamentary approval. Hong Kong is once again seeing a rise in COVID-19 cases. It is part of a third wave in the city. Officials say 123 new cases and 1 death were recorded yesterday. Family and workplace transmissions appear to be the biggest risk. Several outbreaks have been linked to restaurants. More European countries are requiring people to wear face masks in public. New rules in Great Britain today started. They require anyone going to shops, banks and supermarkets to wear face coverings. In Belgium, masks are now mandatory in crowded outdoor public spaces. And in Italy, masks must be worn in shops, churches and on public transportation. A priest in the Lombardy region of Italy, which was hard hit by the coronavirus pandemic, has become a YouTube sensation. Father Alberto is 26 years old. He launched a YouTube channel to connect mostly with young people and non-believers. He now has more than 78,000 subscribers. And that's not all. Some of his videos have even 100,000 views. Joining us now is Father Alberto Ravignani, Associate Pastor at St. Michael the Archangel Church, close to the city of Milan. Father, welcome to the show. So great to have you on.
Thank you so much.
So tell us, why did you decide to start a YouTube channel?
Well, I decided to start a YouTube channel at the beginning of the lockdown due to COVID-19 because I wanted to reach the youth of my parish. We were in quarantine, so I couldn't talk to them face to face. I asked myself, how can I keep on preaching to them in this situation? So I got this idea, videos. Young people love watching videos on YouTube, maybe even videos made by a priest talking about faith. And well, I think it's been working.
What a wonderful idea. So what type of feedback are you receiving?
Didn't think it would get this popular. My main goal at the beginning was to reach the youth of my parish. Now I'm grateful that a lot of people understood my message and decided to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram. The first videos I made didn't get much engagement, only about the 10th. Which was about the 10th video, which was about praying, went viral. And from then on, my next videos became more popular. Now I'm supported by my church, the Church of Milan, and the Italian Episcopal Conference asked me to make some videos, and I'm very proud of it.
I think that is so amazing. Father, what would be your advice to people who are trying to reach out to others, especially non-believers?
I think the first advice I would give is to communicate in the simplest way. I don't mean that we have to say easy things, but we have to say deep things in a way that everybody can understand, just like Jesus did. Then the next advice is to know the target we have. If we want to talk to young people, if we want to talk to people who don't believe, we have to know their word, the music they listen to, even the memes they use. And in the end, I would say to know and to use their social networks, our social networks, indeed, because they are the main way to communicate and to reach them. I believe that it is possible to evangelize through social media nowadays, and I even think that it is imperative. The church has to implement this way of communication if she wants to reach people who don't believe.
Oh, Father, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us, and thank you for the videos that you post on YouTube. They're wonderful. Father Alberto Ravignani, Associate Pastor at St. Michael the Archangel Church in Italy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ciao.
Coming up, why today is being called Day of Mourning for many Orthodox Christians. Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches around the world are observing a day of mourning as the Hagia Sophia now opens its doors as a mosque. Thousands of Muslims took part in the first prayers in 86 years at the structure that was once one of Christendom's most significant cathedrals. It then became a mosque and then a museum. Joining me now on Skype is James Skadross, Cantonis Professor of Byzantine Studies at the Hellenic College Holy Cross. Professor, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So today is a global day of grief and mourning for so many. Can you tell us your thoughts on the Hagia Sophia opening as a mosque?
Yeah, so sort of two thoughts. One, as a historian, as a Byzantine historian, I certainly mourn the fact that this edifice will now have covered many monuments, many elements of the Christian Orthodox tradition from Byzantium. Just the floor alone, a 6th century floor made up of marble, is now covered. And you can't see the intricate layout of that floor. It's not just any regular floor. The apse mosaic of the Virgin and Christ is now covered by sort of a tent covering, because Islamic law doesn't allow images in their mosques. So as a historian, I mourn that sort of opportunity to have the culture, the history of 1,000 years of Byzantine, Roman, Eastern Empire available. And then as a Christian, as an Orthodox Christian, I just kind of mourn the fact that this is seen as a victory for some people, a victory of one faith over another. And I don't want to read too much because I don't know the minds, of President Erdogan and the faithful in Turkey. But I see it being depicted on television from Turkey and in the newspapers as a victory of sort of something that started in 1453 and kind of got interrupted in modern Turkey and now is coming to light in 2020. And there, as a Christian, that bothers me.
And some are saying taking this action today on the anniversary of the 1923 Treaty of Lausanne is no coincidence. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And what message do you think Turkey's president is sending?
Yeah, it's certainly no coincidence. The Treaty of Lausanne was the end sort of World War I for the Turks. The United States had not declared war against Turkey, but the other allied countries had. And at the end of World War I, Turkey is partitioned at the Treaty of Sèvres, but that didn't pay out because Turkey fought. And under leadership of Kemal Atatürk, and he was a very great military mind and a good leader, he was able to rally the Turkish people and create a Turkish nation, the modern Turkish nation. And the Treaty of Lausanne reflects that. And I don't think it's not this changing or reconversion of the mosque of Hagia Sophia into a mosque on this day. Really is just a political move to choose this day. Could have chosen any other day, but to really come sort of full circle for modern Turkey and for the establishment of the Turkish nation state. And really, for me, it says it's just this kind of drumbeat that has been a part of the Turkish national identity since its founding, and that is Turkey for Turks. I just really wonder what this has to do and will say for the minorities, the very minimal minorities left in Turkey today.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us and sharing your insights. We really appreciate it, Professor.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Up next, an update on statues of Christopher Columbus in 2 U.S. cities. Plus, he runs a Christian running camp, and today the president awarded him the Medal of Freedom. The city of Chicago has removed 2 statues of Christopher Columbus. Mayor Lori Lightfoot directed the removals from both Grant Park and Little Italy. Her office later said the monuments were being taken down temporarily in order to protect them from protesters. In Worcester, Massachusetts, officials have voted not to remove a statue of Christopher Columbus that stands outside of a train station. The city council says keeping it is a sign of respect to the Italian community. The statue was erected more than 40 years ago. And we continue now our coverage tonight of attacks on Catholic churches and symbols across the U.S. as reports of vandalism rise. Joining me now on Skype to talk more about these crimes and what can be done to stop them is Andrea Paciani, National Catholic Register contributor and legal analyst. Andrea, welcome back to the show. Always great to see you.
Great, and thank you so much for having me on, Tracy.
Well, Andrea, this is all so very disturbing. Churches set on fire, statues being beheaded, graffiti, and some with satanic symbols. It certainly has the faithful on edge, and sadly, there doesn't seem to be an end to it.
I think you're right, and I think it's really important to remind everyone that vandalism and violence are never virtuous. And for as much as we've got to address issues of police misconduct and racial inequality, these kinds of responses definitely silence the important conversations that we need to be having as a country.
Definitely. And in some instances, you know, as with the toppling of the statue of St. Junipero Serra, we've seen the perpetrators. However, in a lot of cases, we don't even know who's behind it. Aren't there laws on the book, Andrea, that speak to this kind of damage to religious property? And what are the punishments for those who are found guilty?
You're absolutely right, Tracy. There are local ordinances and state ordinances that prohibit the destruction of private property and arson. But when religious property and places of worship are specifically targeted, well, then federal law may be implicated. And there are federal laws criminalizing the intentional destruction of religious property when interstate commerce is involved or affected, as well as church arson is a federal offense. And there's also some civil laws that I'm really hoping that the leadership of the Attorney General will start looking at to get these perpetrators and stop them in their tracks before more destruction happens.
Yeah, what further action do you think that we can expect to see in regard to these cases? And in your opinion, do you think they should be investigated as hate crimes?
I absolutely do. I think that they're hate crimes against people of faith and are intended to intimidate. I was pleased, very much pleased, with the president's executive order at the end of June dealing with monuments, memorials, and including religious property and religious symbols in that order. I think that the Attorney General, as I mentioned before, has done great leadership in talking about the importance of faith and places of worship, even during this time of pandemic. I know that he's created a task force to look at this issue. And as a former civil rights attorney at the Department of Justice, I really hope that my colleagues there are going to look into the civil rights implications, both at the criminal and civil level, so that we can come together and that we can have a civil discourse over these issues and not be intimidated by people who just want to foment anarchy.
Andrea, has this ever happened before? I mean, have we seen churches set ablaze and vandalized in the past?
Well, yes, we have. And one of the reasons why there's a federal law directed towards church arson in the 90s, there were incredible attacks on Black churches where churches were set ablaze. We know that during the civil rights movement as well, that was a tactic being used to unsteady and prohibit a calm and careful dialogue on issues of racial inequality. And our history has always been one in which people of faith are attacked. This is where we need to be courageous, we need to be prudent, and at the same time, we need to know that the rule of law is there to protect our places of worship and our ability to exercise our faith freely and without any kind of intimidation.
Well, Andrea, thanks so much for coming on today, and thanks for your analysis. We always appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Tracy. Thank you.
And finally tonight at the White House today, President Trump awarded the Medal of Freedom to an Olympic silver medal winner. Jim Ryan was a congressman from Kansas. He is also the first high school athlete that is to run a mile in under 4 minutes. He now runs a Christian running camp. In presenting the Medal of Freedom, President Trump said Ryan was one of the most accomplished runners in American history. And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.